Hello, species value natures. Black Lives Matter more than every single treatment of the issue, every body of value treatment of it that has been made in defense of it, which is maintained as means to measure and to hurt as a tool by what it's meant to, but by intentions to counter, but also juxtaposed with intentions that no one realizes because of defenses of fact, cheap in nature, justifications, in nature justifications themselves that can't face reality's correlation nature to show in relationship to database illusion stacking, they fact treatments every day in courts in every land. Who'll understand? This was entrenched here since before our founders' births. Our founders recorded fact treatment nature slaves. Our founders recorded, carried into, forced to ignore them still entrenched, able to attach them to fake narratives, multi-front, fake sides of issues, tactically to stay worse than obfuscations, consciously, perpetually, of the criminal foreign influence breaching method to all area of space, had entrenched overt slavery and all these laws against slavery against everyone in the North, in Hartford and Wethersfield, right before the last battle of the Revolutionary War. That's why George Washington had to leave it still entrenched here, even with the French general's help, who was also extorted. Fact treatment nature slave role as a suit of sophistication, as a fact treatment nature justification, reliant upon areas and states overtly hurt, overtly forced, juxtaposed to overt criminal enterprises, other nations legalized criminal enterprises, undercovers, all this juxtaposed together in brackets with and through that with even more overt and unrealized criminal internation, criminal enterprises, and influence. I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a police pro, I'm not a criminal. Influences to making criminal insidiousness natures, like wrongdoers, and acts, like predicate acts, making them more and more, making that nature more and more of pseudo-positive, glorified by more and more people for interests and motivations, juxtaposed, needing to tell the same finite body of value and overall lies, which is happening every day in courts. Nobody reports. They know this, that our precedents are breached. We have ill statutes, and they know that. Like everyone, for example, they get in trouble for something because stupid kids or something like that. Or kids do get in a context that are maintained, juxtaposed with and as this nature, intercampuses facilitated, networks facilitated, because now you have natures of every modern nation in a negative value nature progression, with the nature and the voice of the law defended and justified as what can't defend and justify. So they keep repeating the same things to try to talk to kids that from inside a jail cell. Trying to warn them, because but those natures of conformity of fact treating natures and systems and doctors originally and still are recorded with criminality, with that uncharged, but recorded. And with database illusion stacking, with intercultural crime roles and methods tied to their roles with cases, crime methods and acts and cases, and in databases anyways tied to that. In other words, if you get the physical position of someone, then just keep attaching them to fake database relationships and narratives through time. I just remind. So Black Lives Matter more there has been the defenses of it. So what they're doing too is when somebody of any amount of melatonin tries to talk about all that connected simultaneously in a value progressively as black lives, which is as our nature's lives, which is the difference between what's going to cause negative or positive value nature progressions, which is how we care for that simultaneously everywhere it is, because that is the identity of space caring for itself. And when it's not that, it's only a positive as forced away from the concentration of positive's evolution made more and more through here, as forced away as Lethe of Hades, forced space nature transfer. Of course, return who learn. Chain for sight. Yin Yang, simultaneously painting 5 values as nature. Simultaneously painting 3 values as nature. Because the Trinity has values nature before and beyond it already. Already more forever nature was made through what is the quality of life, a quality of diffusion, positive or negative, in relationship to what temporary positive is, temporary lasting positive and value nature. It is only forced, it's temporary. Our body is only temporary positive because our nature and our body with it at the same time has a value greater than, but as the same nature value as the bond to matter. Makes a vacuum, which realizes the whole nature to one course to all spots at once as its own body of value. And when it was, so what is positive onto that system evolves here. What is not doesn't evolve here. So we can draw this. That's what the ancient snow people are about. This is what the magnetic field is about. We're our space. We'll see. The identity of space. Radical correlation is discernible through science. Allah's name was revealed to teach this. At the same time, the one identity of the yin yang. Same time, the Trinity. Jesus Christ is about the positive relationship to itself as a quality of diffusion that is positive always onto itself. The devil's about diffusing inherent nature's course. They'll drop the force. I speak of source. So, Black Lives Matter. We have what is trained for voting, what are trained for fact treatments, like with color, even now, when they treat. See, this is relationship to the recorded extortion of the voices of our presidents per areas and states recorded as natures needing to hide their collusion with and as criminally foreign influenced natures there and here. And with and as crime methods and maintaining them consciously unaware of that as tool knaves with and as the value of the trade center, with and as the value of the counters to it, with and as the value of the investigations into all the negative value nature progressions and acts tied to that, like the predicate acts with the trade center, known, and further recorded, known, and hid, but by further predicate acts with the investigators of it, because they are covering their roles that were facilitated to motivations with that attack on this side, not by groupthink, but what maintains the groupthink manifest as a tool per a recorded, consciously maintained crime against each age of fact treatment nature. Each person sequentially together, grouped and progressively. Each body of correlation nature, each age of it, everyone. That raises agencies and branches in collusion needing to cover up lie progressions, overall body of value treatments already through time, and finally already through time, lie progressions tied to that, to themselves and to others, all as victim predators. That's what motivated the original breaching method to keep everybody pretending they're were for the new nation, but still hiding their roles with the entrenched, since before our founder's birth, internation breaching method, a fact cheap in nature, racketeering influence and corrupt organization act is what RICO stands for. I'm not a lawyer, not a criminal. Organized Crime Control Act, ACA, is what it evolved from. With the transition from that were recorded and known, agencies juxtaposed with other nations, and branches, police, and fact treatment natures form all of that juxtaposed with evidence reception, with and as the value of evidence reception bodies, as native reactions in relationship to the originally forced retreats, reactions, forced shared abroad and homeland, and then further in relationship to wars and investigations, all things tied to that, and then further in relationship to tactical ulterior from spaces, value, nature, system, force, market positions, for and as this force and that, originally and still, already having had maintained space tactically denatured to maintain the sciences in the campuses of each nation, maintained space criminally forward influenced, maintained, with the value system, tactically ulterior, everyone from a tactically denatured relationship to nature and means. Then the branches realized through this, military realized through this, all to knave roles, worse than groupthink. But then what is to the groupthink, because this is also to mission creep, which is a phrase that came from in relationship to how we were raised through victim predator, still criminally foreign influence sciences, and forced agreements between the French and American, per what George and Washington and the French general had to leave with overt slavery in the North, in Hartford and Wethersfield, right before the last battle of the Revolutionary War, meeting in Wethersfield, right in Hartford, what is now Trinity College. There. This was for per uncharged but recorded criminally foreign influenced zoning laws, impositions, value, nature, system, means to infrastructure, imposition, slavery laws. You couldn't even talk about it. In other words, the captivation of our nature that was also cultivated to build the lie progression as a crime method, using the lie progressions and the lie progression cover up natures. As voices formerly made, needed to pretend they believe things like drugs and some kind of were responsible for witch trials, for example, rather than letting understood what was the real method of and motivations behind putting black in with the law as a fact treatment racket, and because now you're defending the law is not a law, it's a fact treatment racket. Racketeering Influence and Corrupt Organization Act is a RICO statute. Now this evolved from Organized Crime Control. We'll go back. But in other words, this whole time, our nations are legalized criminal enterprises since semi-ancient times. All modern nations were revealed as Oz, as sophistication only through campuses, criminally foreign influenced, ancient value, sabotage, to have it justified and defended, to cause negative value nature progressions, to maintain the only sophistication as Oz, tools, reliant upon the overt, like the gangs that the president is warning us about. These are people who are victims of, that's not like, this is of a mental illness that is intercampuses maintained formally. And this is, and you know, it's inter on off campuses. And the off campuses part with the on is juxtaposed with overt criminal enterprises, nations all, you know, as fact-cheating natures, reactions, undercovers, overt gangs, counters to them, control where they have to control the violence to areas, the aggression with and as the value of fact-treatment nature, premises treatment natures, in relationship to, as a means to keep the quality of fact-treatment nature perpetually abridged and self-defended as such. So we have voting not let a free base that was not criminally foreign influence there and here, per and as the same crime method, recorded Russian and American agencies with the same crime methods against our citizens, because they were facilitated to it with interbranch, everything juxtaposed per a breaching method, maintaining each age of factual nature, her victim predator reactions into and as roles, database illusion stacking, stealing the voice of people. Fake news is real. People don't realize it. Stealing my whole life. For years, I used to make me feel safe when they say I-Team, WFSB. Now they stole my voice. For a long time, it's with a whole bunch. They're not letting me report. So they have interbranch actors recorded using their kids offensively, setting lies about people who try to put in complaints and demonstrate correlation. Because we have bad natures recorded. We have evidence sequence shifting, wire crime natures, database crime natures, interbranch Facebook policing, and other online platform policing. Then you go to talk about it, the networks and stuff, they have sensibilities that can't be honest because they're also already invested them used for like treatments, what they think about, in other words, impressions. They're not dealing with crime acts. In other words, we have people, these people also directing illusions to cover up their life progressions for how they were made, motivated to be with and as such natures, through games, through kids, sequentially through time. Raising, with insights, knowing they're going to raise people to interconnected database campuses, foreign and domestic, shared, at all levels. This way, on the books, but off the records too. I mean, in other words, we're on the books is only off the records because we have shared policing of our nations originally, demonstrably still. Confessed by themselves, demonstrated by themselves. But on-off campus, we have such a shared on-off campuses facilitated crime roles and methods with evidence reception natures, interbranch, intermilitary. So what we need is a place to have areas, have free speech outside of courts, have freedom of religion outside of courts, have courts not attaching us to fake database conversations, sequence shifts, fake relationships to others, into records through time, multi-front with areas fake and with fake news, fake both sides of stories, fake conversations with victims and with their family members, and then sequence shifting, refusing to take down things like that. Their crime role, and doing that with and as their recorded crimes with proven sex offenders, with further recorded and confessed natures of crime roles with ones that are doctors, male and female, involved with the male and female investigators, interbranch, and everything other positions with the courts through time, recorded and confessed. Already long manipulated and further to cover it up used for all kinds of natures of federal crimes, formal interbranch, intermilitary, with overt federal criminals, with and with prison cliques, with crimes on and off campuses, with crimes with the networks tied to these schools, tied to this crime method, not let reported, just like they're not letting reported child predator acts, because their motivations for it and roles with it, juxtaposed with the overt sick, are to have the reaction, because they have everything, natures of crime separated. But this is an area, space, nature maintained positions. This is a breaching method, positions. And they maintain reactions to certain natures of crime where no one thinks. And they're just going to let experts take care of it. They don't even know what that means. See where they bring that shooter? Of course the guy's crazy. He's got a mental illness. See, that's a fact-cheap in nature racket where they bring him in right where the formal mental illness people the sickest are. Psychology. Recorded, shared with crime roles with nations, policing and fact-cheating rackets with courts where they pretend that they're not supposed to speak medical information as a means to database illusion stack to cover up their crime roles before they were even in courts. Raised criminally foreign influence in conjunction with already propagated courts that were spreading illusions about people, attach people to fake relationships to others, sequence shifting, database illusion stacking. So that builds up. So they say that, they admit the people who run the courts at like local and state levels, local levels and stuff like that. They have like a shields and stuff like that. I don't know where the link is, so I don't want to go into. I want to. You're supposed to recite your sources, but it's known that courts don't know what to do because they were raised to follow directions, to follow, and then to defend those premises treatments, defend those treatments, convictions tied to titles, tied to notions that they can't express on paper because those titles never had credibility. They were always maintained to maintain influences facilitated specifically for fact treatment brackets where each branch could only understand simultaneously their own individuals grouped and together needs to cover live progressions to come and past and in the moments, each branch distinctly together, and then facilitated with juxtaposed with private, with the banking crimes. Their victim, you have to understand how they were victim first. Like J.P. Morgan had to loan money for our government to fight in the first Revolutionary War. He's buried in Hartford. Fred Grouzet and Joey Quest, a number of people that use that name, recorded and confessed with others. What's his name too? Well, I forget other names. But these are people with interbranch and foreign police cliques and drug cliques, overt roles with federal criminals of various natures proven, but unrealized more because how was it, in other words, they're progressed with criminal justice roles and methods exploiting how each branch doesn't understand their own natures and reactions, criminal uses by a breaching method originally still. Like when they tried to explain slavery or even Jim Crow, they fail. And they fail to let anybody explain it because they're failing to let our opinion natures of all states and areas be anything but criminally foreign influence, breaching fronts to behind the scenes pseudosciences, quality of fact, treatment, nature that can't defend it and justify itself and defend us at the same time, let alone defend glorifications of that, of our founders painted as them. They wanted us to explain that it's not them. Our founders are against that, against slavery, against their own slavery that they had to leave here. They could only send me the counter extort this. So before groupthink, before, which I don't know who came up with the phrase groupthink too, that was what they were given to the victim, predator made, but stayed victim, George Bush. That position of voice is simultaneously distinctly and non-distinctly captive entity. States voices, areas, interbranch voices, distinctly and non-distinctly maintain criminal captive entity. They know this too. They know that they were raised with evidence reception crime rules, offensive and preemptive. An O'Brien family, a Gold family. I don't know what you know. The depth why of their motivation by their understanding them recorded, and what because I never had anything to them. People in uses of the name Joel with mail crimes, wire crimes, police forging names, switching dates, and with crimes with principal sex offender just sentence, but worse. See, they also have male and female doctors attaching the family members and the kids to fake relationships to doctors through time, telling the news to spread rumors because they have to call it lie progressions because they were raised criminally foreign influence with drug clicks, with tied officers, with crimes recorded with and as the value of them being child abusers with the child sex predators, not letting things be reported. That's why we have problems with the school shootings, because they're using the schools for a crime method that's on off campuses, intercampuses, maintaining our very networks criminally foreign influenced. And that's why this is, so we have to be able to report acts. See, if people want to dispute things, but they want to dispute it leaning on courts maintained already criminally foreign influence, needed to make the wrong decisions, recorded tied to criminal uses of lawyers, sensibilities, in fact, treatment natures divided into types of treatments of types of crimes, recorded systemically with and as means exploiting all positions of correlation nature, which is a trinity, which is 5 pillars, 5 values as nature, as the yin and y. Because this trinity also has value before and beyond it. The perfect value progression. Each trinity, each cell nucleus, cell body, cell wall, sharing that cell wall as a shared body, all parts of our body. In demonstration of this course, the only course that is before, as the value to and as the order of the finite, to and as the order of all body of value grouped, and to and as the value of the progression together, with and as that value, which is positive or negative, which is the cause of positive value nature progression called evolution, or the cause of Lethe of Hades forced our values progression away from here instead of gained here, because the position, that's just the nature of the relationship of the identity of space to itself, which is before, then as all finite values, just as your identity is in demonstration to you of this, is before and as the order to all finite, grouped, and total progression, value, within as us. Identities, having identities to see and discern this. Having the nature of positive simultaneously, distinctly and non-distinctly, beyond and in our control at the same time. It is the phenomenon of a relationship to how our nature makes us see the course of evolution. It makes it see how it's hard. But and that to see that it gains the perfect value progression gain here. To see it and ignore it, it makes us our identity as value as Lethe of Hades, as value force to progress away from here. Because the identity of space as value, will only stay perfect progression, perfect value progression. So there are only 3 dimensions, because like everything, it's in demonstration of the value-nature relationship to itself that the perfect value progression has to the semi-nature of itself, coming through simultaneously, inherently, actively, and progressively coming through matter as life's value, a quality of diffusion, plus or negative, in relationship to the Trinity. When all ways are plus, this is a quality of fact treatment nature as being prohibited. And then they put up the Black Lives Matter Black Lives Matter too much to have that as one more obstacle to have to fight and to have to hurt, to allow hurt, and to allow that hurt to be pretended who's trying to help. You know what I'm saying? They're forcing fake sides. They're forcing naive fact treatment nature perpetually. Same people what do they say? Insanity is repeating the same thing to the same outcome. That's what they do. They say, but they also, as a trick fact treatment nature, fact treatment racketeering influence, the Corrupt Organization Act. We have to treat it as an organized crime. It's why President Obama, and candidate Mitt Romney, in their debate, I think it was the last debate, the whole debate was about sanctions. It's about organized crime. It was about predicate acts and criminal insidiousness natures. Time used as a weapon there and here. No one could agree because of how it was is used there and here. Not only because of how it was, because how it was is used there and here per fact treatment racket. Ignored and exploited, invested with our nations, with fact treatment natures agreements through courts and with prisons shared, with psychology investigators shared, with database solution stacking crime rules, attaching people to fake words through time. Police admit are recorded. They're told to say about people, oh, we know about this person, we're familiar with this person, and in relationship to where they're having that true, because they're associated with making things come true, but they're associated with making it come through because they're using the truth that they have to say that sometimes, and as a means to lie, to pretend they're telling the truth, and then to courts with the motivation of pretending that they believe that things should be settled in courts when they know is way more natures of crime and of motivations of way more people already criminally foreign influenced needing to cover up their life progressions tied to innocent people also being hurt in courts each day. Juxtaposed illusions worse than they did also onto people. You know what I mean? But completely made up things too. Stacked fake